So I'll start with my learner here. Stand up, show them what you have. What is that she's having? Small industry. Place where the small industry is. Large industry. Is that the part? Who is the last person to have the tag? Yes. What is that? The mouth. Good. Water. Even in the stomach, there's some water being absorbed. Are you together there? Yes. Then we go to the next part. Which one is that? No, isn't it? So we automatically going to rule out what? The mouth. Because in the mouth, we only have what? Digestion, isn't it? Digestion of? Do we have absorption taking place in the small intestine? Yes. What is absorbed in the small intestine? Yes. Nutrients.
Dr. Otundo yuko hapa pamoja na sisi, mheshimika sana katika some of our Kejsea leaders who are joining us shortly. I think we are being attended to somewhere else, and some other people are still in the studios being taught what we do best here at Gravity CBC Center. Please help me.
Lakini hizi zingine ni waste management. Ni vitu zimetupwa. Recycling, using and good. Apart from smoothing, what else can we use a jack plane for? Apart from smoothing, it's also used for making surfaces of the wood to be straight. For example, tuseme tuko na kakitu kamekaa hapa juu. When I use a knife, I can also use a knife.
Related to the acids and all that. Somebody to ask any question.
We have Mr. Kejsea from Kiambu.
Dr. Otundo Julius is my name. I'm a faculty at Triara University and senior lecturer and head of School of Education, and as well head of professional development and training. I want to make clarification that the curriculum is CBC, competence-based curriculum. But from inception, we have been implementing competency-based education. For a long time as a country, we hadn't aligned with the needs of the 21st century, and especially with the type of curriculum that we were undertaking. We were more of knowledge-based as opposed to proficiency-based. The world is not interested in what you know, but the world is more interested in what you're able to do with what you know. The world is not interested in how many academic papers you have, but the world is interested in how much innovations you can make to solve problems. And so one of the things that is critical about competence-based education, which is the broad-based of proficiencies and competencies, is where we apply the curriculum to ensure that the human being takes the place that God has destined him to be. We want to have a strong partnership on teacher support, trainings, and all that, so that we are centered and around innovation. And through that partnership, you never know that next time you'll be listening to him, you'll be listening to Dr. Duncan. The competency-based education, which goes into competency-based assessment and basically into competency-based education and training. Where I stand at the competency-based education and training that then releases the students to the real world. And we are saying today, it is not about training students for jobs, but it's about training students for lifelong learning. If we train students for jobs, we get it wrong. But if we train students for lifelong learning, we get it right. Because it is through lifelong learning that the students become innovators, that the students become thinkers. And one of the greatest competencies among the 7 competencies we have is learning to learn. Learning for life. We do not have to think about the problems we have, but we need to think about how we think about those problems. So it's about thinking as opposed to thinking about things. The advent of AI, it is because of the thinking about thinking. In fact, what you have seen here is not actually Internet of Things. It is Internet of Everything. If we are in an era of Internet of Everything, it means we have to strongly empower the learners who learn through our hands. When we started CBE, I used to have a lot of clash on many people because people would go around telling students that there would be no assessment in competency-based education. And I will tell you, I have no idea whether there is any part of life that misses what we call an assessment. Because if you get led back to your house in the evening, don't you get asked a question, where were you? Isn't that an assessment? But many times I would hear people say, there will be no assessments. I would hear people say, there is no competition. You know what? We have to compete with our own excellence. And while we are competing with our own excellence, we stand out from the crowd. And that is what competition is all about. Competition is not about seeing the size of the other person, but rather competing with your own excellence. So CBE emphasizes on competing with our own excellence. There have been a lot of complaints for a long time about competence-based deliverables. And the questions have been, the government is not doing this is not doing that. Let me tell you, the biggest question we must always ask ourselves is, what are we doing for the same government? The government is yourself, so what are you doing? It is that question that Duncan did ask himself, and that's why we are here today. Not to serve just private education, but to serve the entire education in this country. While I listen to so much about benchmarking to other parts of the world, it is now time to begin to listen to benchmarking in Africa. And not just to bring it close, benchmarking in Kenya, and to bring it closest, benchmarking at Gravity Resource Center. It is not a time when universities are going to design specific courses, because with the advent of AI, you can have your own degree. You can create your own space. You can all have a certificate created by AI. And that's where we are headed to. That the level of innovation is so high that if we do not align with it, we will stagnate. Are things to wait until when some of the people you're working with are assessed to be certified to be innovators. And so it's a time when we are going to have students begin to get multiple degrees, multiple certificates even before they graduate. You're in your second year, you're in your third year, but you have several multiple certificates before you graduate. By the end of it will all be based on the skills and competencies that have been built. It is no longer the game of the West and the East. It is now the game of understanding the center of innovation in everyday life.
First, let me say that the national exam that grade 9 are expecting to do, popularly known as Kejsea, this is a competency-based assessment. So it is an assessment that is going to assess the process, not the answer. So you realize that most of the answers, especially the multiple choice questions, are actually correct. And therefore, if the learner does not understand the process, then there's no way that learner is going to get the most appropriate answers. So it's quite critical that the learners are properly guided, they are properly oriented in how the questions are being, the assessment is, questions are being asked. And that is why we are holding this symposium from today for a full 5 days. We'll be taking through the learners through the assessment, pilot assessment that a NEC has actually given as a model question, or as model questions of what the learner should expect at the end of in next term. So our depository of experts, CBC experts have gone through the entire assessments in all the 9 learning areas, and they have come up with the model solutions and the process of identifying those solutions. So we take the learners through, and by the end of this exercise, we have realized documented evidence that the learners are able to improve their performance by almost 20-30%. Just by showing them the way of thinking, the learners are able to really improve their performance by almost the 30 to 40%. So we want to emphasize that it's so critical that the teachers and parents should really prepare the learners and guide them, so that they are not surprised when they really get to the assessment, notwithstanding that this assessment is the first one. So a lot of people are in the gray area. They don't really know what to expect, but at least Gravity CBC Resource Center has taken that step to prepare the learners so that they are not ambushed. And for those learners who are outside Nairobi, maybe too far, they may not be able to come to the center, we have an online platform that parents can register their learners. They can be able to do the model, go through the pilot assessments in all the learning areas, and get a result, get the average results. And then they can go through the orientation and do the same questions again and see the progression. And we have also come up with sets of different questions that are related to the concepts of the national exam assessment. And consistently, if you do the 5 sets of questions and get an average of 50, then you would expect, even in the national exam, that is what you would expect. So we have a variety of assessments that we are encouraging parents to really engage their learners, so that they are quite aware of how to approach the assessment and be able to to give or get the results or assessment results that really show their real ability and potential.
Maybe our teachers also.
Absolutely, the teachers are also encouraged to come for the symposium, because the teachers are the ones who will guide the learners in the assessment. So they also need to understand, so that they can actually go back to their schools and help the learners prepare for the assessments.
Jina langu ni Dr. Paul Wanjohi, mkurugenzi wa Sharp Education Center, na kwa hivyo kwa sasa tumekuwa na hii symposium ambao inaelekeza wanafunzi, tuseme washikadau wote katika elimu, kuhusu maandalizi yao kwa mtihani wa grade ya 9. Na tunaona huu mtihani ambao wanagojea wa Kejsea una umuhimu mkubwa, kwa sababu utafanya mwanafunzi aidha apate shule aliyotarajia au akose, kwa sababu yote inalingana vile atafanya. Sasa ndipo tukatayarisha hasa katika CBC Gravity wataalamu, walimu wenye ujuzi mkuu, wakaketi na kuangalia, kulinganisha mambo yaliyo katika karatasi na yale mambo ambayo hutendeka katika projects za wanafunzi ambazo NEC imekuwa au wamekuwa wametayarisha. Na kwa hivyo wanafunzi wengi ambao watahudhuria kikao hiki wataweza kuelewa vizuri, na walimu wataelewa kile ambacho wataelekeza wanafunzi na wazazi vile vile. Na tuseme nikiangalia katika transition ya grade 9 mpaka grade 10 tuko na challenge kadhaa. Challenge ya kwanza ambao ningetaka serikali iangalie ni pahali hawa wanafunzi, kwa sababu shule za private sioni wakiwa wengi ambao wako na hizi shule za senior school. Hawa wanafunzi wengi wataenda wapi? La pili, tujiulize shule za upili, the senior schools, zitakuwa na kategori mbili za wanafunzi, wale wa mtaala wa CBC au CBE na tena ile ya 844. Kwa hivyo kutakuwa na timetable mara mbili, na hiyo itakuwa ni changamoto kabisa. Number 2, wale watoto ambao pengine wameishi katika shule ya bweni ambapo hawapatani na watoto wakuja wakirudi ndani the day scholars, kuna shule ambazo sasa zitakuwa na day scholars ili hali zimekuwa shule za bweni 100%. Sasa kutakuwa na changamoto kwa sababu shule nyingi au wasimamizi wengi wa shule watashindwa vile watazuia mambo mengi mabaya kuingia katika hizi shule.
My name is Samuel Kinuthia. Kinuthia is the director of a school in Ruiru, a school called Precious Cornerstone. The symposium is going to bring about, because we'll be here for quite a number of days, is that I know that it's going to give us a clear path of the transition process to senior school. It will also enable parents, it will also enable teachers to give guidance to these young ones so that as they transit to senior school, they can transit to schools that they chose. And like I said, I'm a director of a school. I always remind my learners in grade 9 that we spent a whole day making selections for the senior school pathways. So if you look at the time that we spent, the learners' time, the parents' time, the teachers' time, then it was a very serious thing. And therefore, as we come to the end, because we're almost coming to the end for those in grade 9, we want to ensure that we transit in a strong way. We finish strong. And that is why the symposium is there, so that it can enable us as teachers, it can enable us as parents, and even the learners themselves to finish strong and go to the schools that they chose. What we thought would come as educators, what we thought would be the correct way to do it, was somehow didn't meet our expectations. Because we expected that if there is a learner that is interested in taking a particular pathway, he would master that. I thought that now that we have the technical pathway, the government would follow that. That was what was in my thinking. But unfortunately, or fortunately, it's different from that. So what Gravity CBC Center is bringing up will be an eye-opener to all of us. I'm very sure policy makers have been here. They have come here and they have seen. And I am very sure they have borrowed a reef from this place. I would encourage as many of us as possible to sambaza this injiri, to tell our neighbors, to tell our neighboring schools, to tell those that we interact with on a day-to-day basis, that there's a place that can be able to isn't the process of selection and even transition to senior school.